Okay. Good. Let me, a couple more questions. But by problem, it's export, import, append, and write. Yes, Mads, if I understand your question. Export, import, and then append it can help fix a lot of scale issues. Okay, now the other thing I want to point out is how subtools and scale work. Okay, so I'm going to append a couple more of these guys. They're all in real-world relationship to each other at this point. So we've got this guy here, we've got this larger guy, we've got these cubes. These all have real-world units to each other. But let's drop, now that we're looking at the subtool, let's drop down to export. Look at that. That's not set to 3.955. It's set to 1. If I come into this delete, it's not set to 6.54. It's set to 1. It's set to the top unit of 1. So subtools are always going to reflect that top unit's scale. This is, in fact, how they unscale themselves to be in relationship to each other. And I'm going to demo that one more time, and then we'll probably call it quits because this is quite a bit of information as it is. Let's just pick this guy here. Okay, his scale factor is 6.184. So now I'm going to append one of these cubes. Like, we know that this default cube 2, that has a scale factor of 1. So I'm going to select it. Does it have a scale factor of 1? No. Because it's taking this scale factor from this guy and using that to divide the cube down so it fits within this guy's real-world space. How's that for some serious mental mind twisting? The general idea is that you want to pick the largest model, and then that way everything will scale down, like this guy's boxer briefs just did. Everything scales down in size, and ZBrush loves tiny things. You will get a less successful result if you pick this small piece and then you have everything scale up. That's not going to be as successful. So try to get the largest guy so that you get everything to shrink down into a smaller setting. You will have fewer problems. So as Kathleen was saying, she has a very large model that she created inside of ZBrush, because you can take these cubes and move them out, and you can create a very large model. But if you're running into problems, you would just take that large model, you would export it, re-import it, and then you would add all of those subtools back to it. And that will magically shrink it down into one ZBrush unit and make things work a little bit better. I'm spending 45 minutes on this because it is a little confusing, but it's actually very serious. Anytime that you're dealing with problems, technical problems in a pipeline, if you know about the export import, if you know about this scale factor here and looking for that geometry size there, and you know about this idea of use the largest guy first, then you are going to save your team an enormous amount of energy. This was actually one of the more important things that I would do with people is, like at ILM and Ubisoft and EAs, I would go over this. Because if you're coming from a Maya perspective, you just think, well, in Maya I want this to be 6 feet tall, you're using your Maya measurements, and you'll get yourself in trouble fast. The brushes stop working, displacement maps start to run into problems, and the fix is relatively simple. Okay, checking questions? Ryan saying, I've noticed if you change units measurements in Maya before you bring your model back in, scaling issues can happen. So pick a unit and stick with it. Yeah. I think that kind of thing happens even outside of just a ZBrush pipeline. Like the VFX Soup and all those guys, they'll set those measurements up first with some kind of environment. And Kathleen, so you can take one unit cube from a program, put it into the top subtool, then relate everything to it. So what Kathleen is saying, and this is actually something that I do recommend to people to do, is let's say inside of Maya, you built your character, and now you just want something to tell you what one ZBrush unit is, something to give you a sense of scale. I tell people, take your character and cube, scale that cube up to 2, right? You can even move that cube off to the side because you really just need a size relationship. And then you work with both of these. So I'm going to go File, I'm going to export this selection, I'm going to say this is Demo, Delete, and this is Cube, Delete. Okay, now I can come back into ZBrush, and let me just initialize this scene entirely. So I'm just going to go Preference, Initialize. Let me check my draw. Yeah, these are still set, so grid and tile are still fine. But I am going to take my polymesh, draw it on, go into edit mode. I'm going to import demo delete, going to import cube delete, and in this particular case I'm going to take the demo because it's larger and I'm going to append the cube. Alright, now they come perfectly synced, and now I have a little unit of measurement. So if I know inside of Maya that my real-world units are they are 1 centimeter, then I know that this is 1 centimeter. If I know that's 1 centimeter, I can do something really cool. Now, I need to divide this so that I get that center line. So I'm going to go into Divide. I'm going to turn SMT off and divide. There we go. I can now go to Move, drag from one line to the other line. So that's 1 unit. And if it's not, then I just calibrate it so that it is. But otherwise, we're in pretty solid shape, you know. You can use this little cube as a unit of measurement. Let's say we define this as 3 feet. Okay, let's say our guy is, we want him to be 6 feet. We now have a little tiny measurement unit over here that will really help us sort that out. So let's say here is 6. So he's supposed to be 6 feet. And then we're going to arbitrarily decide this is 2 feet roughly. That's our measurement unit. So now I know I can come into Move. Let's just set this from vertice to vertice. And now it's got 2 units. So I'm set, I'm good. Let's say if I want him to be 9 feet tall, that means that now I've got to scale this. So I want this distance to be 3. And then I can go from top. Let's select the subtool. Top to bottom. Well, that's not quite right, but we went a little bit too many. Let's set this to 9 feet, and then we'll know how far that is. 2.3. Anyways, gets used as a little measurement device. I've seen people do that. They put a little cube. I used my hand there. They put a little cube down here and say, this is 1 foot. Then you can use transpose to just take that and scale that up. Okay, looking through questions. Johannes, if we build a large base model in Maya, for example, will the export re-import fix things, or would it be better off scaling the object size down before the export to ZBrush? Johannes, if you have a large model in Maya, as soon as you import it, then it's going to be scaled down. So that's actually already taken care of. The problem would be is if you go into ZBrush and then you make it even larger. Now another variant here, something to be mindful of, is Z-spheres have scale issues because they're from an older part of the matrix. They have issues in terms of how they see space, and they are generally very large. So if you create a base mesh from a Z-sphere, you're going to have some scale issues. Hey, Means. Steve, yeah, toy design, prop design, yeah, you got to know these kinds of measurement tricks. Mads, could you, as we are in the middle of problems with the relations between ZB and other, tell how to do deformation in ZBrush when then imported appended part is placed far off? Mads, I'm not quite sure I got the question. You're talking about how if your model is off center, I think. Unfortunately, as we go through this, you guys are starting to see, you know, there's a lot of problems that crop up, and I've dealt with a lot of problems in the support area, you know, support at ZBrushworkshops.com. You have to have an image to, we have to have images to solve the problems. There are a lot of variations, and scale is one of those where things just go south. If inside of Maya, though, what you're saying is that your model is your model has a part that's way over here and another part that's way over here, and then the main part of them is down in here, and you want to get all of that in at the same time or deal with the difference in the size. I would say right off the bat, it's going to be problematic, you know, to deal with that. If it's like this, you'd want to treat these guys separately. There's too much space in between them. But I would really need an image to kind of be able to help sort that one out a little bit further. And please send the images. That's what the support team is for. And it's really important you get these questions in. Johannes, would the other base mesh creation systems in ZBrush, like Dynamesh and whatnot, have problems with scale? Dynamesh is better. Z-spheres are very specifically because they're an older part of the matrix. Okay. In fact, why don't I show you guys that real quick, because that's a real simple scale thing to show. And they could fix this at any time, though, so. Right off the bat, you'll see that, you know, just creating these guys, I mean, I'm already getting quite a lot of scale. I'm already well out of that one ZBrush unit, right? And then you press A on the keyboard, and let's just go into adaptive skin, make adaptive skin, select that skin, and go to my export. See how the scale says 0? It's telling you pretty straight up that that Z-sphere does not care what the scale is. Size is there, but that 0 is very worrisome. So an easy trick would be what? If you see scale as 0, or if you know this is going to be an issue with your model, what are you going to do? I already told you it's like 20 times. Export and re-import. Yeah. Take it, export it. And this is not the ideal, and you only do this when you run into problems. But that's what I'm showing you this for, is so that you have a sense of how to deal with problems. Okay, so that got scaled to 1 ZBrush unit. Geometry size, it's pretty basic. And then export is now giving you a setting. Of course, the reason why it's this way is because the model has never been exported. The Z-sphere model was never exported. It was entirely inside of ZBrush. So that 0 really just means that everything is inside of ZBrush. It doesn't really even understand the outside world yet. All right, that was an hour on scale and a ton of stuff in there. Now, if you have other problems, other questions about it, please email support. Actually, best thing, email your mentor. In this case, it's Nate. So email Nate. I'm losing my brain here. Email Nate with the image and the dilemma. And that way you can make sure that you're getting an answer to it and to the specific problem. So Mads, I would definitely recommend sending an email with an image so we can get through that. And this is one of those things where I really want to make sure you know the answers. You really have the solutions. Okay. Any other questions before we move on? Mads, we need scalable brains as add-ons. Have you heard about the initiative by Google to put your brain in the cloud? You should read some Ray Kurzweiler. That's crazy stuff. But basically, once they simulate a human brain, 2030, that's the date of singularity, if you believe it, then you may very well be able to reach out to the cloud for extra computational power. Since I think we only are able to hold like 300 million, it's not 300 million patterns, it's 300 million patterns, but then there's repetition in the patterns. 100,000 discrete pieces of information, I think is what it ended up being, or patterns, pieces of knowledge. And I'm sure I'm using up all of those with ZBrush today. And Johannes, the theme from Terminator should definitely be going in your brain. Alrighty guys, displacement maps, normal maps, and decimation master. Now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about displacement maps. I'm probably going to get into Maya and do a little bit of rendering, but I'm going to be using Maya 2009, not the latest. And that's because the goal here is not to show you the Maya side of stuff. It's just to kind of introduce you to some of the concepts and some of the ways that ZBrush is trying to handle things. And then I'll introduce you to a trick, a measurement tool that I picked up from ILM long time ago, what they used to calibrate things.